My name is Kyle Giddings. I work for the Colorado Criminal Justice Reform Coalition, and I am now the deputy director of the organization. So, we do policy work on a state level to advocate for decreasing the use of the Department of Corrections as a tool of trying to fix social ills. Um, I particularly also work very heavily in voting rights restoration and advancing and making sure folks that didn't know they had the right to vote are educated on their rights to vote. Professionally, when I first started leading with conviction, my title was civic engagement coordinator. I started as an entry level member of the organization, but with the help of like my executive coach as well as my peer coach Joe Watson, it allowed me to develop my skills for leadership and advance myself to where I am now, where at the beginning of January I'll be now the deputy director of the organization. And it really helped me break out of my box and like really trust what I believed in and trust in my abilities. My biggest challenge was thinking outside of the box. I came from a background before I was incarcerated of politics and working at the Capitol. And so I just had this idea that things only worked a certain way. And so I went into the organization with like, okay, I know how this process works. I know how to do this and everything. But CCJRC has been around for 25 years and they have never worked with inside that box. And they've always broken the parameters of the system to make sure what needed to get done got done. And so that was my biggest challenge. And Teresa Sweeney, my executive coach, and Joe Watson definitely came alongside me and helped me think outside of the box, but also develop the skills to stay in outside of the box, not let myself fall back into it. Biggest example I can think of is Senate Bill 72. Which what for in Colorado requires in-person voting sites in every single county jail now. We're the first state to do it. People in jail have been able to vote while they're there pre-trial or sentenced to a misdemeanor, particularly in Colorado, for 50 years. And no states really grabbed the mantle and tried to advance that work and making sure eligible voters had ballot access in the jails. And so I was given the task of helping run the campaign and the legislative agenda to get this bill passed. And walked into it with this whole idea of how lobbying was going to work and how talking with the legislators was going to work. And my boss really challenged me to like, this is something that has never been done before. You should try to do it differently than how everyone else does everything else. And so I really took that and I ran with it. And with talking with Joe and Teresa and worked through the system. And now here we are. We're the first state in the nation to require in-person voting sites in every jail in Colorado's case. It was amazing feeling to know that you didn't have to fit into a particular form to get stuff done. And that my unique experience of being formerly incarcerated and my ability to use that lived experience to advance liberation and the rights of my community that I belong to, it was a huge impact on not only me professionally, but personally. Professionally, well, starting as deputy director in January, I'm gonna hang out there for a little while, and learn that role and just like learn how to keep thinking outside of the box, but also on a professional and personal level, intertwined there. Working with my colleagues that I've met here at Just Leadership to help them advance the legislative priorities that were very similar to mine, and then also learning from them and learning what their legislative priorities are and how we can work together to think outside of the box and really advance the rights for our community. The biggest myth is that, for me, is that folks that are locked up don't care about their communities. I tell this story all the time to folks that I was inside the Denver County Jail helping people get registered to vote, and we were actually doing voting that day. And so a guy who was in his 50s, who had never voted before in his life because he thought he couldn't, registered to vote, and it was a school board race, so a pretty low turnout race. And so he registered to vote, and he came up to me. He's like, I can't help my kid with his homework right now, but I can vote for the people that decide what his homework is going to be. And everyone in that jail that day was expressing their voice in their community that they were going to go home to. And they took the time out of their day to make sure their voice was heard. And that is the biggest myth that I would love to crush and continue to crush.